listen, dude.
All right. My name is Blake Pritchett, and I'm giving a biography on Babe Ruth. All right. Baseball, America's favorite pastime, is a sport known by most and played worldwide. Many great players have become well known for their ability to hit, run, score in the game of baseball. One particular guy is George Herman Ruth Jr., better known as Babe Ruth. Babe's early life. George Herman Ruth Jr. was born on February the 6th, 1895 in Baltimore, Maryland. He was one of 8 children born to a couple of George Herman Ruth Sr. and Kate Schamberger Ruth. He was one of their 2 children that survived their childhood. Growing up, George was always the one getting into trouble. His parents were not able to deal with his bad behaviors, so when he was 7 years old, they sent him to St. Mary's Industrial School for Boys, which was a Catholic orphanage and reformatory school that became Ruth's home for the next 12 years. This is where George met his role model, a monk named Brother Matthias, who was the first to introduce Ruth to baseball, which would change George Herman Ruth's life forever. As George started his uprising career in baseball with the Boston Red Sox, he found his first wife, Helen Woodford. At this time, George was still discovering himself and his love for baseball. He was gaining recognition for his talent. He eventually got traded to the New York Yankees, which made him and Helen have to move to New York. This is where George started to succeed more than ever and catch the eyes of many onlookers. He became caught up in all the attention he was getting from other people, which caused problems in his marriage. Helen was not as enthused as George was with the social attention he was gaining, and this caused problems in their marriage. As they struggled to keep the marriage together, they adopted a baby girl and named her Dorothy. With the hopes that the baby would keep them together and fix their problems, it didn't. So Helen decided to move herself and Dorothy back to Maryland. They then divorced, or they didn't get divorced because their Catholic religion would not permit such a thing, so they spent the rest of their marriage separated. As George's career thrived, he went on to meet a lady named Claire Hodgson, who later became his wife due to a tragic event with George's first wife, Dorothy, or Helen. Helen died in a house fire, which left George able to remarry. So George took over the raising of their daughter, Dorothy, and married Claire, who also had a daughter that same year. George's baseball career continued to thrive and become known across the world as one of the greatest baseball players in America. All right, we're playing the audience now.
Very good.
Can you show that?
All right. George Herman Ruth has been called the most dominant player in history. Although Babe had several successful games, he still had to work hard to keep succeeding. Many players saw Babe as a threat to play against because Babe was legendary. According to a written biography about Babe by the Luminary Group, it stated that during his time with the Yankees, Babe ignited the greatest dynasty in all of American sports. Prior to his arrival with the Yankees, he had never won any title of any kind. After joining the Yankees prior to the 1920 season, Babe helped them capture 7 pennants and 4 World Series titles. The 1927 team is still considered by many to be the greatest in baseball history. Upon retiring, Babe held an astonishing 56 major league records at the time, including the most known in baseball, which was hitting 714 home runs. One article that I found interesting was where the first and only girl ever allowed in men's baseball struck out the legendary Babe Ruth. Babe's fame brought this 17-year-old girl fame also because she became known as the teenage girl who struck out the mighty Babe Ruth. This was a devastating day for Babe Ruth. However, he moved past this humiliating day and ended up setting a record of 60 home runs in one season, and it was not broken until 34 years later in the year of 1961 when the seasons became longer. Roger Maris is the man that broke Babe's record. Also, his career record of 714 home runs lasted until 1974. He was one of the first 5 people inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1936. Babe Ruth retired as a legendary baseball player in 1936. Not long after his retirement, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer in 1946. He eventually died in August of 1948 at the age of 53 and will forever be known as the Babe. The Yankees had just retired his jersey number 3 just a few months before when he made his last appearance in the Yankee Stadium. At Babe's funeral, more than 100,000 people came to show their support and appreciation. Mentioning Babe Ruth's name can start conversations no matter what part of the world a person calls home.